so let's get to the truth about growing cannabis.
If you come in here and say, I'm a master grower, boy, I'm gonna really think about what you said. I promise, I'm gonna think about it.
We're here with Clovis from Four Scissors, Shane from Green Light Management Group, both world-class cultivators, consultants, and today's show is about how do you raise yields, terpenoids, cannabinoids, best practices, all of that. You guys are at a whole different level.
Where we're at right now is we're in a position to help everybody level up.
This is not something everybody did. So we were pioneers to this industry. We were doing things nobody else was doing. You don't do that perfectly. You take lots of L's along the way, and they define
Way
how
more
you make
L's.
decisions moving forward.
We're human and we make mistakes.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Right? And the way that we continue to grow, the reason that we're all here is because do yourselves a favor. Take advantage of the fact that people are willing to share this information now.
That's right.
The best people of the industry will always collaborate. I think it's just a general stereotype from people that went to church their whole life and were told it's the devil's lettuce.
Yeah.
And if they would give me a chance, spend a day with me, and I promise you I'll change your perception. I even believe that the future of cannabis medicine will be.
All right, this is going to be a great show today. We're here with Clovis from Four Scissors, and we are here from Shane from Green Light Management Group. You guys are both world-class cultivators, consultants, and today's show is about how do you raise yields, cannabinoids, terpenoids, best practices, all of that. We want the viewers today to be able to take things that they learn from here today and immediately implement them in their grows to be more successful. So first off, just tell us about yourself. Shane, tell us your background and
Appreciate
everything about you.
Right on. Appreciate being here. Been in the industry for about 20 years, believe it or not.
20 years?
Yeah.
Oh, you're an old-timer.
Started growing back in 98 in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Was introduced to hydroponic retail stores, started doing my thing in the retail industry. And that was really the basis for the education. I got to basically spend every day at the shop behind the counter, reading every book, every magazine, every publication. Rosebud back in the day.
Oh, good old Rosebud, yes.
It was giving people the information that they needed to get started.
Yeah.
With that experience, the Bay Area was already on a commercial level at that point.
Yeah.
So I got exposed to that, ran that scene for 3-4 years, graduated college and moved up to Humboldt.
What did you get your degree in?
Actually got my degree in art from the San Francisco Art Institute.
That's great.
So art and design, and actually
the art of growing cannabis.
No doubt.
There you
exactly.
go.
And then got into the cultivating side on a much more commercial scale when I moved up to Humboldt
When did
County.
that happen? When did you see that transition? Because what happened is like all these hydroponic stores, and a lot of guys missed the boat on that. They didn't understand that this is going to be the future, and the black market. They didn't understand that the new black market was going to be the legal market.
Right.
So it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, Humboldt definitely did not see the writing on the wall. The Bay Area was able to survive the ebbs and flows of the industry. I think, obviously the zoning, the restrictions that California put on Humboldt.
You think that my next question was going to be, why do you think that Humboldt has such a difficult time?
Yeah, they really throttled people based on the zoning and the opportunity.
Based from the past, they figured, we're going to get our pound of flesh from you. Not understanding that the next Harlan Estates Screaming Eagle is going to come from the Humboldt region.
Right.
That if you took Napa Valley and you took all of France wine region and you put it together, that's California cannabis.
No doubt.
And Humboldt County was the heart of that.
Yeah.
And the Emerald Triangle. And going after those guys is like just really like shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, unfortunately. And it's hard to see or feel like it wasn't by design on some levels.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe they thought that they would have better control of the industry if they maintained it indoors, which again, like you're saying, defeated the the point of the Humboldt terroir and the know the tourism that could be associated with that production.
I miss those great sativas that came out from the outdoor that were long term. Boy,
right.
oh boy,
14
oh boy.
weeks, something you can't get anymore.
Yeah, the candy kids, we're still trying to get them exposed. Get them educated and get them exposed to the quality of product that we all had access to back in the day, and the sativas that actually work weed, or that we used to call it. We worked 12 hours on the hill. We had smoke to support that activity.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Things have changed quite a bit. I would say social media dramatically affected that as far as the shift in people's interests in certain genetics. Aesthetic became a major factor that it didn't used to be. Bag appeal was always a thing, but opening a bag and smelling that funk, that different, the real OG, the off thing, like cat piss and different things that you just don't.
I remember cat
the
piss,
original skunks, things that would broadcast themselves for miles down the road. A lot of that, it's not lost. We're just, I think we're in a process.
I think that there's going to be a resurrection of all those great strains.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So no, it's honestly, the industry's just been a blessing to me. It's provided everything I've got in my life. I've got 5 kids that it supports.
5 kids.
5 kids.
You've been
that
busy.
It supports. I've been busy, man.
Good for you.
And got a little micro farm in Michigan. We live by our principles.
Are you one of these off the grid guys?
Not fully off the grid, but I'm if power goes down, I'm good. Let's put it that way.
Good for you.
Yeah, no, we've got freezers stocked. We do, a
little farming, a little big, huge garden, and all that canning.
We raise chickens and all good stuff.
Oh, you've got good quality eggs.
I took my experience and my roots from Humboldt, and that's always been close to my heart. And it bleeds into everything I do.
You just exported it to Michigan.
Exactly.
Very good.
Yep,
Very
no
good.
doubt.
All right, Clovis. What is your story?
So,
because you guys are world class.
Yeah.
Like most of the folks who are watching, I want them to understand that you guys are on a whole different level.
Well, I'm really honored you say that, Mike, because, being humble, I try not to think that way. But I came from Texas. Texas is a very large state. You know how they say everything's bigger in Texas. And there's 27
it's like a different country.
million people. It is like a different country.
Yeah.
And the last time Texas voted on their cannabis legislation, 62% were in favor of it. So
what the hell is holding it back?
Bible Belt.
Really?
Yeah.
The Christians,
antiquated philosophies that just the world has outgrown. But
well, that's why religion in general is not growing. It's declining.
Yes.
Because they're not making the pivot to
correct.
Speaking the language of the modern day people.
If it's not what the people want, they're not going to do it. That's just how it goes. Yeah. It's just like cannabis. If you don't have good cannabis, people don't want it, they're not going to buy it.
Well, that's a whole other discussion we'll have later on in this interview. So let's more about you.
I was in Texas in 2011.
Where at in Texas?
North Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth.
Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yes,
all right.
So big city of Fort Worth, funky town. And long story short, Texas got to teach me some lessons about what was right and what was wrong. That sucked.
I mean, the man you're talking about?
Man to come in and decide to give me that old slap on the wrist
I think
and say,
we've all been there, I believe.
Yes, sir. So I worked in the oil field. I have a petroleum engineering degree.
Wait a minute. Your petroleum engineering degree.
Yeah, so I spent 14 years doing mass spec and lithology analysis in the oil field, writing lithology descriptions, doing extensive testing. I had 30 labs all across the oil field, and they were all mobile. So, I mean, it was like the most logistically difficult job.
What the hell were you testing for? Like
reservoirs. So we would go out there to the wolf camp, and we would look at the rock and the material and analyze it to say how much is actually down there.
Can you actually make a good estimate of what's there?
So as a reservoir engineer, I am incredibly lucky to be knowledgeable on that. And between lithology analysis that they do for
what is lithology?
Just a fancy term for dirt.
Dirt. All right.
Like the Wolf Camp Shale, which is the particular play that we typically drill out in West Texas. It's just a fancy term for dirt. When you get to a degree, they're like, oh, Everybody that's seen more rocks is the more knowledgeable person. It's just like cannabis. The more cannabis you've seen, the more knowledgeable and respected you are in this industry.
And the more facilities you go in, the more knowledge you
Correct.
get.
So you have to conduct yourself and present yourself in a certain way. And when you talk about dirt, lithology is one of those things that if you're not saying it well, you're going to have a hard time being received. So, like, it's just like cannabis. If you come in here and say, I'm a master grower.
Boy, is that a term thrown around a lot these days.
Well, I'm going to really think about what you said. I promise. I'm going to think about it.
I got a few questions to ask you.
I got a few questions to ask, exactly.
That's it.
So I come from a science background. I was a very close family member to me, had cystic fibrosis.
Okay.
So she has specifically Delta F508, which means that her lungs don't produce hypochlorous acid. So I worked with hypochlorous acid in my labs for a very long time. Well, come 2017 really, I stepped away from the oil field. I was like, I'm just done doing this. Come 2019, I decided, well, I want to be more legitimate. And I started chasing states that were, regulated per se. Moved to Oklahoma, did the whole license thing, did what everyone else didn't do. I lived in Oklahoma for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
To get that. Yeah, because everybody else just
You see
said,
that
I
show,
lived there.
Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah.
Is it kind of like that over there in
It is a
Tulsa?
lot like that.
Really?
Oklahoma is the wild west of cannabis, and you have to experience it to understand what I'm saying. If you're out in Oklahoma, I have absolute respect for you, especially if you are operating in the black, because it is an incredibly difficult market. But, they say the cream rises to the top.
Always.
So I was out there in a very difficult market, and I found quite a bit of success. Very honored by the people I got to work with. I got to make some great relationships. Got to build a couple of incredibly large facilities that were beautiful and automation to the max. Wound up having an investor that was, hey, do whatever you need to do.
Oh, you're fortunate.
To make it right. And I worked for him for a couple of years. Loved working for that man. That man equally taught me a ton of business things that I would not have otherwise known. Massive respect for who he created, because when I went to work for him, he asked me, he said, Clovis, what do you want out of this? And I said, that's easy. I want to be the best me that I can be. So if you will build me to be the best me I can be, because I had character flaws at one point in time.
All of us do.
Yeah.
They're called blind spots, so we don't understand until someone points them out to us.
And those character flaws were negatively impacting my ability to represent myself in a professional manner.
Yeah.
So I worked with a business coach for several years. Russ, respect, shout out. You did a great job. Thank you. He helped me understand some of the things I was doing wrong, especially in communication. I've always considered myself to be a good communicator. Russ taught me to allow my words to have the weight that they need so that they can be as effective as they're supposed to.
So you learned to speak slower.
Correct. And for a year I got to.
And the reason why you probably spoke fast is because you just wanted to get it out, and it has to do with a psychological thing where people think that people actually don't want to hear what you have to say, so you say it fast. Instead, say what you have to say.
No, give your words the weight that they require, because this is a group of killers and sharks sitting at this table. Every one of us can talk slow, and every single person will still listen because our words have weight. So I learned that, and I carried that forward. And in 2021-ish, when Mississippi's market opened, I went down to the Mississippi market, and I tried to crush it down there. There's some huge facilities that I've been honored to visit and represent personally. Very successful down there. I'm really looking forward to the Texas market eventually being a part of this industry. Because
what do you think that's going to happen? Like they're the holdout, and when they go, it's going to be huge.
Right. So I don't think that they'll ever actually do it themselves. I think federal legalization will force them. It's just too much in the Bible Belt. And Governor Greg Abbott has specifically stated that he would kill any legislation that supported marijuana that came across his desk.
You got Florida. You got Mississippi.
Alabama's got medical for sure.
Alabama,
Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma.
Those are the Bible Belt, and so they're the last
behind the times.
Yeah.
I tell everybody it's arcane legislation, and I hate that anyone is subject.
Who's holding it back? There's usually a group that's holding it back.
I'm not sure in Texas.
Yeah.
I don't know who it would be specifically per se. I think it's just a general stereotype from people that went to church their whole life and were told it's the devil's lettuce. Yeah, it's not the devil's lettuce.
No.
And if they would give me a chance to change their perception of it, spend a day with me, and I promise you I'll change your perception on cannabis.
Usually their perspective changes when someone gets very ill in their family and they have to use cannabis, and they go, oh, I have to rethink this.
I worked with a cultivation in Mississippi, Magnolia High Growers, and the owner, Roger, he is advancing in age. And he was on all of this pharmaceutical medicine, blood pressure medicines, sleep medicines.
Once they get you,
we've got a pill for that.
Yeah.
Well, I talked to Roger the other day. We had a pretty intimate conversation that he wound up telling me, hey man, I'm not on none of those pills anymore.
Really?
I just do cannabis now. And he mixes it with a couple other things like lion's mane extracts and a few other things that he's adding into his regimen. But he has completely dropped the pharmaceutical aspect of his healthcare. And I couldn't be more proud of him for that, because I personally have not always felt cannabis was medicine. When I started, it was money.
When I first started out, it was revenue generation.
It was revenue.
Until I saw
with
cancer patients what I actually did, and it changed my whole trajectory.
Right. I started meeting people that their life would be so much different without cannabis. And when you look at it from that perspective and remove yourself from it, you're like, oh man, this is not everybody just wants to get high. Don't get me wrong. A lot of portion that do.
Well,
but it's absolutely medicine.
I believe that anyone who is just like they say, just getting high, is actually truly self-medicating themselves for traumas that happened to them during their childhood and in their life. They just don't realize that they're actually
nobody
medicating
told them
themselves.
that they're doing the right thing.
Right. It's like
so they just do it behind doors.
Instead, they go, "Oh,
and act like, oh, this makes it better."
You're a pothead. You're a stoner. They push them down and try to devalue them as humans, when all they are is, if you could understand and been through this person's childhood, you would understand why they do what they do.
Right. They want better for themselves, and cannabis makes them feel better about themselves.
It does.
It's why I firmly believe it's medicine, and I even believe that the future of cannabis medicine will be trying to directly tie certain cultivars to the effects that they alleviate.
And people's genetics as well.
I think for sure. I think that genetics and everything will just follow this path and this trend. They will deliberately cornhole themselves to this one specific thing that they want to alleviate.
You'll look and say, okay, what kind of outcome do you want to have? And it'll be like a barcode or a QR code, and that will be your whole genome.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll have the genome of all the cannabis plants but actually beyond cannabis. And they'll look and go, this is the one for you for this outcome. That in the lab, they can already do that. That's
so I worked with medical
within a decade. That will be
the qPCR testing and stuff, and they can isolate genetics and verify if they're copies or not. It's amazing the amount of things that they can do right now today.
Medicinal Genomics is a great company. They put on CanMed. We've been big sponsors of them.
VJ's a good buddy.
That's where the real science of growing cannabis is happening. These are the guys who are shaping the future of cannabis for all of us.
Absolutely.
And I'm always amazed when I go to CanMed. I don't see any other nutrient companies. I see no lighting companies. I do see Abstracts is there, which is great, and they have some really great scientific talks. But a lot of our community, they don't go there, and they should, because these scientists are an open book.
Yes, they are.
And they will talk to you openly, and you will get a download of information, and they can put it in normal conversational terms that you can understand. But CanMed is a must-go for
100%.
every single 100%. person. Just like they go to MJ Biz, they should be going to CanMed. Yeah. It started, I think this is their 10th year. It started at Harvard. And we've been big sponsors of them ever since they started, because science is the truth, science is the answer.
It is.
And so let's get to the truth about growing cannabis, because that's what these folks are listening today. These growers are listening, cultivators are listening. So this is going to help them quite a bit, but I'm going to get a little sidetracked. I want to talk about egos in our industry, and how people's egos get in the way of them being and having the full potential as not only a human, but also in their business. That a lot of these folks don't realize that having a big, huge ego is actually a negative to being successful.
Yes.
You had a business coach. We'll get back to that in a second. I want to talk about what my own thing with ego, what I had to learn real quick. There was a woman when I was 25 years old. Her name is Gail Fuller. And Gail was a friend of my mom. She was a nurse. And she pulled me to the side one day. I was a cocky 25-year-old. And she said, Mike, I want to talk to you about ego. I go, okay, Gail, what about ego? And she goes, well, you know, ego is going to get in the way of a lot of things in your life if you don't get a handle on it. I go, what the hell are you talking about, Gail? Ego's important. Ego's the driver. Ego's what makes me successful. Until one day, shit hit the fan, so to speak, in my life. And I remember the conversation with Gail Fuller. I went, ego. And then it forced me to have to look at myself, because I see a lot of people in this industry, it's called external locus of control, is when they blame everything. When you look inside, that's internal locus of control, and that's where all the magic happens.
Absolutely.
An internal locus of control, because then you are taking full responsibility and ownership of all outcomes that happen in your facility, because the choices and decisions that you make are critical, and if you externalize them, you're not going to be as successful as someone who operates from an internal locus of control. So the egos in this industry are the biggest downfall for, let's just call it, traditional growers moving forward. And I understand why, because where they were, how their childhood, it's pretty much the same story. There's traumatic things that happen in different ways in people's childhood, and it forced them to be hyper independent because we couldn't rely on our parents and all kinds of other shit that happened, right? Plus, we're being put down, we're weed growers, we're looked down upon society. All that shit takes its toll, and so we fight it by puffing our chest out and being more of what we think that we should be, when actually it's the polar opposite, where we should be looking at ourselves and thinking, okay, how could I have made a different decision? And would have given me a different outcome. So let's talk about that. What have you seen here? And what's the difference between guys that you see them go through a transition where, you know, maybe their ego was big and then you saw them become more humble and more successful? Any stories that you've seen?
Let's hear it, brother. I've got a couple for sure.
Okay. Well, we'll get to the growing stuff, but right now, the head stuff is actually more important than the growing stuff.
It's key, man. And honestly, I think I was blessed to have a jump start on some of that actually through my education in art.
Right.
Because every week was a critique, right? You're laying it out there.
So you had to get used to criticism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these guys have sheltered themselves. That was part of our reality. We lived underground, you know. And it was easy to feel like we were something and
special.
We were,
because we did. We had a superpower. We knew how to take a plant and under artificial conditions grow this and make a shit ton of money.
Turn it into money.
And turn it into money.
It's alchemy. We
were alchemists. You look at that scrawny little plant and all of a sudden it grows these big, beautiful buds, and you're like, holy shit, this is the most amazing thing in the world.
Yeah. And you only got exposed to it through certain channels and people that you knew and certain relationships, and that came with ego as well. You know, like having certain protections by certain individuals and being invited into certain circles as a result of this plant, you know, was a power. You know, it was a superpower to some extent.
I felt like I was of the world, but not part of the world. Hell, I didn't pay taxes for 20 goddamn years.
Right.
It was just like, I'm in there, I'm doing this. I am not bound by the rules of society like all you other people are. Well, that's a mistake to think that way. Wow, what a mistake. And what a eventual learning experience it will lead to in your life. And that learning experience will be you're put through the flame. And that flame will either consume you or temper you, and you come out the other end way smarter and being a better human being, not only in your grow, but in your personal life and your social life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think luckily the medicine forces you at a certain point to look within, whether it's that micro dose that turned into a macro dose of a brownie from back in the day that was hand mixed by your buddy, and next thing you know, you're talking to God. I think that this younger generation has not had as much exposure to that. And in some ways, I think it's been a safer situation, which is good in a lot of ways, but has prevented some of the younger generation from having the exposure to the trials and tribulations that we had in coming up in this game.
And I would push back on that safer a bit, because there's a lot of criminality still involved around cannabis.
Absolutely.
Because it's not legalized. And there's people ripping other people off, and all kinds of nasty shit, extortions, blackmails, kidnappings happen. It just never makes the paper. But it's happening every week.
In Oklahoma, where I was at, I had a facility in Guthrie that I built.
Yep.
In the next town over, Kingfisher, they had a facility where a guy was the investor, gave him a bunch of money. 2 years later, he comes back like, why have I got no money? Shows up to the grow with a gun and kills 4 people.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is absolutely a lot of criminality still out there today. You can look that up. That happened in Kingfisher, Oklahoma. That was wow.
Shane, I want to get back to you finishing your story about ego and what you learned about
Well, I mean, I think to this day, as things continue to evolve, we're moving out of the bro science, of
hippie magic, bro science, whatever you want to call it,
which does have some value. Don't get me wrong. That's where a lot of us got the enthusiasm to support our desire to follow the science ultimately. But it took getting exposed to that and realizing that applying that knowledge is what has actually allowed the plant to evolve and help us to evolve alongside of it. I'm a firm believer that we work for this plant. I think that there's something intrinsic about our connection to cannabis. It goes back tens of thousands of years, even to the Bible and religious times, and I think that as science has guided our ability to support the plant, we're now in a position where ego is less of a factor, because the numbers don't lie, You're
right. Numbers do not lie. However, there's still, I see this clash of these two cultures.
Sure.
And both have egos on both sides, and they don't really understand that they need each other. And when they come together in unison, magic happens.
Right.
But if you sit there and call each other names and disrespect each other, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. And, I think that requires experience through going with that and being able to navigate both sides of the fence,
Yeah.
Opposite of Clovis, my experience was in the trenches, getting exposed to science, but those two things coming together has been what has allowed me to level up my career and pivot into consulting people. And
so you're consulting. You ran across these egos, and and so you go into facilities. You got the owner; he's on your side. The cultivation team, they're less than enthusiastic about what they do, and they want to do things the easiest, fastest, slickest way, and they don't realize they're putting themselves out of business.
Right. And a lot of that's just driven by fear. A lot of these guys are, again, they're moving out of the black market. They get a job to secure, a 3-figure salary, maybe for the first time in their life.
Yeah.
They're seeing actual checks hit on an every 2-week basis.
Yeah.
And people start compromising their ethics based on that in some regards, and will dig their heels into their limited experience out of fear that someone else is going to come in and take them out, and I think that we've seen a lot of that in this space.
Yeah, I saw that. We saw that with True Leaf. We were in their Magnolia facility in Arizona, and they ran their True Newts up against GH and Advanced Nutrients. Their home mix got 19% THC. GH did better, got 22. We got 26. Now you think that the guy would be doing backflips and go, hey, this is news. We just put an extra $200 million at Trulieve's bottom line or more, right?
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
Instead, the guy in Florida who mixes the nutrients, whoever this gentleman is, instead of coming to management and saying this, he would have got a promotion. He said, "Jesus, you just put some hundreds of millions of dollars to our bottom line. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You and your team, we want you to do X, Y, and Z now because you bring value."
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they looked at, well, we're going to lose our job, which is the polar opposite of what actually would have happened.
Yeah.
It's like if you bring hundreds of millions of dollars of value to any company, you're going up on a pedestal.
Oh, yeah.
But because of this fear-based thinking, as you explained, didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I had an answer for it. I think
well,
it's
that's
something
what I'm trying to suss out. I want them to also to be aware that this is going on, and they have their own head trashes getting in the way of their own success. I did for longest time until I had that moment and that awakening, and I became self-aware. And as you become self-aware, your whole life gets easier, changes.
Yeah.
I'm still learning today. I'm not anywhere like where I think I should be.
I think it's a shift from the radical rebel position that we all held of fighting the system versus working within the system to actually achieve the same type of result.
Collaborating. This is the biggest thing, because when you're hyper independent because you don't trust anyone, you don't collaborate.
Correct.
Yeah. And you have to collaborate. There's strength in collaboration. I remember I went to this thing called Money and You in Southern California. It's kind of like a cult, but doesn't matter. Didn't join it. But there was there.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. But they had some. They gave us these like workshop things to do, and one of them was, okay, you sit down by yourself and you figure out this problem. Now, as a group, you're going to figure out this problem.
There you go.
And the group outperformed the single person every single time. Yeah. I don't give a frickin' how smart you are. If you have the right group together, it will outperform everything.
Every time.
Yeah. And so as a consultant, you're going in and you have to, and this is what these cultivators, I want them to understand. They have to collaborate with the consultants. Do not look at them as the enemy who's coming in to take their jobs away from them. No, you're in there to make their life easier and more profitable, and spend more time with their families and enjoy life more, rather than not being able to sleep at night because you got so many shit going on in your head.
Yeah, exactly. I call it the value of support. We're going to support
the value of support.
And too many people have replaced the word value with cheap. It's become synonymous with cheap. And it's not cheap support. It's very expensive support that is
you offer a lot of value.
Going to change your bottom line indefinitely, forever. And that's what I think some people don't realize, that there's nobody that works here that wants to go work anywhere else. I love this job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to do anything else in this world. Why would I? And it's so many people are afraid of someone coming in and taking their job because they're smarter than them. Yeah. And that's just not the reality. You should never fight against that.
No, you're exactly right. If you're there and you build a team around you of superstars, whoever's in management is going to see that you have the ability to build a team that rocks the house. Right. And when you build that team, you are valuable. Unfortunately, I see a lot of people in our industry look at, if I bring someone in better than myself, I'm firing myself. That is not what will happen.
No, it's not. You need to surround yourself by people that are better than you, because you can't know or remember it all.
There's no way. There's no way. So here you guys are. You're talking to these cultivators. How do you make them feel safe? Because that's the big thing. You have to make them feel safe and not threatened, so they understand that there's another way. There's an alternate way of looking at these challenges that we have.
Absolutely. And I think that we make them feel safe by relating to them. Like, nobody's problems are unique. Yeah. Every single person has. We can sit here and talk about the problems we faced literally all day, and every one of them is a great story. I'm sure of it. So when someone thinks that just because I am really good at my job, that I don't encounter problems. My whole job is to face, encounter, and correct problems. That's what I do. And when people just think you're there to alienate them or replace them or something like that, that perception is what will shut down them taking up what you're giving out.
Yeah. And that must be a big challenge. You see that a lot? Or
yeah. It's a dance. And
it's a dance.
A lot of it is, taking it a step down, and just relating to them, like you're saying, through experience, and letting them know that, I'm here to give you my experience, not force ideas on you.
You're basically giving them shortcuts to their success.
Exactly.
I'm telling you where I took L's so that you don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah, I took the bullets for you.
Yeah, I've already been there.
Yeah.
When we, like for us, for instance, when we did this is not something everybody did. So we were pioneers to this industry. We were doing things nobody else was doing. You don't do that perfectly. You take lots of L's along the way, and they define how you make decisions moving forward.
The W's.
And that's what I'm trying to bring to everybody. But my opinion on egos, and I'll refer to 2 default egos, and I'm sure everybody in this industry is gonna immediately picture somebody when I reference these 2 default egos. I am an organic only grower. No-till living soil for life, sir. Synthetic for life. Nothing. We're gonna sterilize everything. Well, coming from my background, I have experienced both of them. And let me tell you that in my opinion, the perfect solution lies somewhere in the middle. So every single individual that's all the way this way or all the way that way.
Very black and white thinking.
In my opinion, you still have things to learn.
Yeah. The best weed that I ever grown was using mineral-based and organic-based together.
Correct.
Because there's
100%.
things in organics that plants are looking for that they can't get with mineral. And you said sterile. What most folks aren't aware of, if you did not have beneficial biologicals, bacteria and fungi, there would not be one living blade of grass on this earth. You need biologicals in your medium to get the most out of your plant.
There is more microbial life in a teaspoon of dirt than there is humans on this planet.
Right.
Oh yeah, it's a staggering number. Someone told me that in every little square centimeter, right here on this table, there's 11 million fungal spores that we can't even see that are there. That's crazy.
Not to mention
there's billions of here that we don't even see it. It looks like a table to us.
And the bacteria that we're
carrying around with us all the time.
Trillions and trillions.
Right.
The microbiome.
We're walking cesspools.
Yeah.
Right?
It's weird. I used to tell everybody when I started consulting with them, your plants aren't going to leave the building and go get themselves dirty.
Right.
You're going to bring it to them.
Yeah.
So you need to sterilize yourself before you interact with them. Yep. And that was, back in the day, that was something I had to really focus on because it seems like, for me, it was so straightforward, right? Because I came from a lab setting where sterilization is so important. Mm-hmm. But from, I'm going to make $1 growing this plant. Yep. That sterilization or contamination or any of that, that's not even in the equation. They're not even talking about that. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the reason I went and wrote the GACP certifications, because if you
what are GACP so people are listening, they can understand? Good
agricultural and commercial practices.
And that's like the highest level.
It is the highest level.
So you build a facility like that, it's a farmer level facility.
Right. And so and this is my opinion, that federal legalization will usher in GCAP for everybody, because every cotton farmer out there is already doing it. Every corn farmer out there is already subject to these rules, and they have to have things like, if their corn goes out and it goes to Walmart and then people start dying from corn, they have to have a recall protocol in place to bring that back. And that's part of what GACP is. They have to have a sterilization procedure for this equipment, a room cleaning schedule, the bathroom cleaning schedule, all those things that people want to easily turn their eyes the other direction and act like they don't exist. The true reality is those are the things that separate the best of us from the worst of us. If I go to a grow and they don't have paper towels and toilet paper in the bathroom, I know they're not buying anything. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I know they're barely keeping the lights on. And I have been in grows where there was no tissues and toilet paper or anything. And I'm like, man, y'all really believe you're doing it right. And most of the time they did. And that's that ego. They let it get in the way.
And so how did you work past that? Because I'll tell you a story. So I worked with a high-performance coach.
Okay.
And he was a smart guy, came out of the intelligence community. And he said, Mike, would you go ask your neighbor for help? No. I goes, oh, okay. He goes, let me ask you another question. If your neighbor were to come to you and ask you for help, would you do it? I said, yeah, of course. He goes, how did that make you feel? Made me feel good. He goes, okay. Why are you denying him the ability to feel good?
Right.
I went, holy shit.
Exactly.
And so now I don't hesitate to ask for help because I realize when you ask another human for help, it's not like your ego has to take a hit. No, they want to actually help you and they want to work with you. Most people do. If there's a good person, the vast majority of people will want to help you. And so maybe it's a fear of rejection or something when asking that question, but you have to ask for help. This is one of the biggest things that's moved me along is asking for help.
No, the top collaborate and the bottom compete.
So say that again. Please say that again.
The best people of the industry will always collaborate because they know the person they're working with has value and brings value to their program.
The other day we walked into a facility. I'm not going to say the name. And right away the egos came up and it was all external blame.
Yes, it was.
In reality,
of that was
it's not the products. The products work. We know that. Millions and millions of people have been using them for the last 25 years. But what didn't work were the teams. Our team and their team must come together and have a discussion and talk about it and systematically go through everything to make sure that everything is exactly the way it should be. And we do that at no cost. There's no upcharge for that. No. We're there to help. And it's very frustrating when we run across that. And so this is kind of what prompted this conversation about ego.
100%.
Because you guys are a different breed. And I can have this conversation because you both are self-aware. So thank you for being here today.
It's an accountability factor, and you just nailed it right there. I mean, it's guys that are not willing to look in the mirror and accept that we're human and we make mistakes.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Right? And
everybody.
The way that we continue to grow, the reason that we're all here is because we probably made a few more. Right? Yeah. And so let us share that experience and that knowledge base rather than pushing back on it as a threat.
We're not there to push you down,
exactly.
to make you look bad. We're there to make you guys look like superstars.
There's enough canopy.
Ownership.
There's enough canopy. There's enough cultivation going on within the U.S., not considering globally.
Oh, my gosh.
That I think we'll all be okay. I think
they're doing it.
Listen.
I know so many cultivators there in Thailand. It blows me away because 10 years ago, of course, everyone loved the good Thai stick. But we didn't think of them as, we're going to go to Thailand.
Thailand is a huge exporter to the UK right now. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. Thailand's exporting all over the world.
And part of that is them producing under the standards that Clovis is talking about. Because in order to ship to Europe, just like through Canada, you've got to have that level of certification.
Yeah.
It's coming, and whether we want it or not, it's time to embrace it. That hobby level production, that guy with his six plants under a light.
That's right.
Your buddy that that has that fire, that's always going to exist. You're going to have access to that.
There's always going to be craft cultivators.
There's going to be
always.
Craft but the market is evolving, and it's for the benefit of everybody that it does. I think through that evolution, we're seeing other plants getting to evolve within this space.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing fungus evolve into the space.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we are.
And
jumping species.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And there's going to be a coming together of all this knowledge base, and it all comes back to how it helps us to become better. ultimately.
It's all working together.
And that knowledge, it comes together right here on this podcast.
Yeah, well, that's why we're doing this.
sure.
So one of the reasons is to educate not only how to grow the best buds in the world, but also how to become the best human in the world.
Yep.
Right, because that matters.
It matters.
You can
a
grow
lot.
the best buds in the world. If you're the worst person, you might drag it through the mud before you sell it to somebody because you're the worst person in the world. You have to be ethical. And that is something that this industry really needs to take a good long look at themselves of how they operate and where their ethics lie in that.
There's a big pesticide problem in the state of California right now because all the stuff that's going out the back door, and then the stuff that doesn't make it, that's moldy, goes into oil.
Sure.
Yeah, distillate, all this other kind of stuff. We've talked about teams. We've talked about ego. Let's talk about what can people do actually cultivation in these big grows. What do you see the number one challenge other than personalities? We're past that. What's the next challenge that you guys run into?
Personnel, not just the personality, the actual personnel.
Okay.
I'll give you an instance. I was working with a facility in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma. It was a 100,000 square foot facility. And they hired a bunch of people to begin with, and about half of them had other drug use issues. So sometimes if you are going to build a facility, like California is a great place for it. There's lots of people here. There are lots of great people here that want to do great things with their life and be successful.
Huge labor pool.
Huge labor pool. So I always tell everybody, if you want to be successful, then when you are planning what you're going to do, you better figure that in. Because you can have the perfect plan to execute and grow the best weed in the world.
In the middle of bumfuck Egypt, and what is the talent pool that you're pulling from?
Bingo. Who's going to run the facility? Are you going to go out there and be a lonesome lone pirate just doing it all by yourself? Because I know what that's like.
Oh, we all know what that's like. That's back in the day. We're all lone wolves, right?
Yeah. It's not good. So in my opinion, you need to focus first on the business plan.
Okay.
And because proper procedure will dictate the result. And
Okay.
if you follow procedure each and every time, then you will have a similar result each
So
and
what
every
you're
time.
saying is you're process and system driven.
Yes.
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 And that's one of the keys to success for anyone in any business is to be process and system driven.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have that, you are in trouble. Deep shit.
No
Real
doubt.
fast.
And then the second thing I would say is everybody understands their own problems. Whether they have the capacity to fix them, they at least understand them.
Yeah.
If you can present them to somebody who is not you and look at them from a different perspective, you might get a better answer than the one you come up with. Because that's learning through the L's. And I learned long ago that I can learn from other people's mistakes as well.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I am trying to bring to these grows. And I want to convey that to them. First and foremost, I'm not here to remove anybody. I'm here to help you be the best you that you can be so that when we go to MJ in 20 years, we're just all old buddies.
That's
We've
right.
been doing this.
Really old buddies.
Yeah, really old buddies.
I'll have the walker out, but that's okay.
It's all right.
One of you guys just wheel me in the wheelchair.
Hey, Ed walked with me last year, and we had to move a little slower. So I get it.
No, listen, I love Ed. Ed's a great guy, and he's an icon. He's been here forever. We've all learned from Ed, and he's still out there doing his thing.
and every
And God bless Ed for doing his thing.
No,
Yeah.
I couldn't be more appreciative for him, putting out material because
We're talking about Ed Rosenthal.
Yes, Ed Rosenthal. He put out all this material for us when there
When
was
it was
no
illegal as hell.
and there was no Google.
Do you remember what happened to Sensimilia Tips up in Bend, Oregon?
Oh, the Prince of Pot, Mark Emery.
No, that was in Canada. What happened to him? But there was a magazine called Sensimilia Tips that came out of Bend, Oregon, and the guy's name was Tom Alexander. That was him, and he put out this great magazine about how to grow Sensimilia, and they came in, they busted his place, Operation Green Merchant. Fucking tore him a new thing, and they said, "You'll never bring this magazine out. If you do, you're going to go to federal prison." So he just dropped the magazine. So that's
man. I
talk
had to
about
hear that.
censorship.
And speaks to the importance of procedures, knowledge base, and unfortunately at that time the government feared the power of those things.
Yes, they did.
But it speaks incredibly to the necessity of those things. You can't just walk into these facilities and start up-potting things into some random soil mix and, not test your water or, not test your growing media or and think that and not have an R&D portion of your facility and feel that you're going to have some level of success because it's going to plateau quickly.
So R&D portion.
Sure.
Do you think that every single facility should have at least a small R&D?
Certainly.
Okay, so why?
If not on-site, off-site, you definitely need R&D space.
Why does every facility need to have R&D space?
Because you cannot just change a procedure that you've been working with
Yeah.
without knowing what your solution is going to be.
So if you're going to write a process or a policy, you first have to have it in
You have to validate
R&D.
it first. That's what we call it.
Could you imagine advanced
validate
sewage we just mix up stuff and hand it out to growers and it doesn't happen that way.
Great. Everybody would love us.
There is a strict testing protocol. First it goes into the lab, then in the hands of a few trusted growers, then out to trusted growers in the commercial space and watch how they use it, and then makes it to the marketplace.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And from the business perspective, it's just an unnecessary risk for the business to take to try to make a major
why take a huge
shift.
risk when you take a small risk and see what the outcome is?
We see it all the time, though. And it's
really
interesting
wait.
because
You see people just risking it all?
I would say so, and I think I see it more on the genetic side than anything.
Really,
that they get enthusiastic about a hyped strain, something that may have recently won a cup. I think we all heard a story recently where there's certain genetics that people did pretty well. Mm-hmm. They won a couple cups, but these are unstable genetics. And the success of the individuals that created them allowed them to push them into the space without really considering how that was going to affect people's outcome and what they were really doing.
So they sold seeds that had huge variance. Yep.
That were not stable
Yeah.
to growers that were less experienced. And it's like handing a 16-year-old kid the keys to a Ferrari.
Yep.
They're going to slam it into a wall somewhere.
That's a perfect example. And that's exactly what some of these investors/owners are doing. They are working with limited knowledge of what they are trying to accomplish and trying to hire people with infinite knowledge to accomplish it for them. Yeah. And the reality is that there's some people out here that are just taking people. And when you say risking it all, you hire a grower, and this grower is, I'm going to try this because I've never done it before. It's what I want to try. And he risked it all with your money. Yeah. That is one of the most important things that any cultivation can do. Vet the individuals that are going to complete tasks for you. And if they are a higher position of authority and responsibility, then you need a much deeper level of vetting before you place that person in that position. Because I have personally seen where someone was put over 100,000 square foot facility, and I feel quite confident they were growing in a tent before that.
No way.
The facility's not around anymore. There's people that know me and they're watching this, and they're going to know exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm not telling lies.
Yeah, there you go. And that story has unfortunately repeated itself quite often in our industry because the ability to grow at scale versus 10 lights in a basement is vastly different.
No. Focus everything from scalability. I was lucky enough that when I got to do it with an infinite amount of money, every question came first. How does this scale? How do we scale this? Why would we do it this way if it doesn't scale?
And what about consistency? One of the things I'm really surprised at is some of the irrigation systems that are out there that people are using versus what's available. You've got Rhythm, you've got Eden Water Tech, and these things are extremely consistent. One of the things to find problems is you want consistency because then you can locate exactly what's going on, and also reduces work staff and people. The human element error is taken out, and that is so important. There's systems like Arroyo,
data collection,
the data collection, the sensors. People aren't using these technologies that are going to put bank in their pockets, and they're hesitant because they don't understand them. So let's talk about that. How many facilities you go in have automated irrigation and have the sensor array versus the other facilities you've gone into that don't have this, that haven't made the sound investment or understand the potential. Because I see a lot of money guys, they don't know. And then the grower goes, oh, it doesn't matter. No, it actually does matter.
Right.
A lot. And it's going to make their job easier.
It matters so much more than they could possibly ever. So as part of my consulting, I cannot be everywhere at every time.
Yeah.
So all I can ask you to do is collect as much evidence / information as you can about said problem, and then present it to me so that I can help find a solution somewhere. That's what I think sensors do for you. They give you the ability to recreate the scene of the crime and go back and say, well, on this day, we had a pretty massive spike around 11 o'clock. Why? What happened? Where did it go? Why did the room dry back so hard the next day? You know, maybe there was something there. And when you collect data, you are able to present that to somebody outside of yourself and then see what their thoughts are on it. As opposed to, well, I walked in the room and all the leaves were droopy.
And what we're experiencing now is there's this evolution of equipment as well, right? And so there's this mid-range of quality of sensors and environmental control equipment, fertigation equipment that has done well for the industry up to this point. And it's just like the quality of an employee, right? If you don't have those quality vetted employees, if you don't have that quality vetted equipment, you're throttled by that. And these sensors are not all designed the same. And the maintenance of these systems and sensors,
the maintenance of the sensors
is another factor.
I hope everyone keys on the maintenance point.
Missing.
Really,
that's the main focus of my company.
Let's talk about
currently.
the maintenance. What's the main number 1 or 2, 3 points that people don't understand about sensors and maintenance?
So cleanliness being the key, and that comes down to your sensors and everything as well. You've got to keep these things clean. You've got to calibrate them on a regular basis.
How often should you calibrate them?
I would suggest, depending on the quality of the equipment, they may have a different tolerance, but you're best to do a weekly or bi-weekly calibration.
Okay.
You know, there's not it's not a complicated procedure. Why not take the step to ensure that your visibility is accurate?
Right into your SOP, your procedures, policies.
Because if you only have your third-ranked guy available every day to do the spotting for your facility, you're gonna miss things. You know, you're not gonna see that early thrip development because they don't know how to spot that. You know, and that is gonna evolve into other issues that could be mitigated right on the front end. So same thing with the equipment. If your equipment can properly sense and relay that information to you, you're going to be that much further
So
ahead.
how does someone spot thrips early?
Leaf damage.
Leaf damage, yeah.
What does that leaf damage look like?
It's going to be like a small silvery, almost silvery speck. Honestly, at that point, you've got them. You know, if you see them, you've got them.
You've got them.
It's not a bad idea at a commercial scale to do a soil analysis that includes looking at any potential bugs and pathogens, because that's typically where you're going to get them right away. You can't necessarily prevent your employees from bringing them in necessarily, but proper SOPs, you know, changing of clothes. There are certain body sprays and different, you know, things that are available on the market that come from the medical industry, where they're antimicrobial, antibacterial, and whether you're walking through an air shower system or you're treating yourself with some level of antimicrobial, antibacterial. You know, you want to make yourself as sterile as possible. Your environment is never going to be completely sterile.
Correct.
These plants are organic. They're decomposing. You know, the roots are decomposing. You have live things going on. It's not about how you completely sterilize them. It's how you work within that world to prevent the extremely negative outcomes. Same thing with your irrigation and fertigation system.
Okay.
You want to be changing those filters weekly. In some cases,
I see this. People, they don't want to change the filters that often, and they have to understand that's part of what you're doing.
Hire a mechanical guy.
They take 2 minutes.
Right.
You screw it
A
off.
maintenance
you
guy.
pull the
Hire
bits
a
out, clean
mechanical
them.
guy.
It's so simple.
And then they go, oh, my drip emitters are clogging and doing this. And most of the time, again, external locus of control for those listening, blaming, instead of saying, taking internal locus of control and say, you know what, I'm going to go clean those filters.
Yep.
And taking ownership and accountability of your responsibilities in the grow.
Absolutely.
And also in your life.
Happens on the front end too, because these guys.
What does that mean, the front end?
So the front end of the design process, and before you get to having to maintain things, you want to be making sure that you're able to maintain them in the most efficient way, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys, like a filter change, for example, they'll make the mistake of putting all their filters in the rooms themselves, rather than some filters and filtration built into the water room space.
So why don't you want them in the rooms?
Because you have to send someone in there to change the filter, for one. So that mechanical guy may not be somebody that you want necessarily in the cultivation.
And he may not be clean.
That's a factor. And then the reality
might not be clean.
Exactly. And the reality is you want as few people in those rooms as possible, as little as possible.
Okay.
And that's different than the culture that we grew up in, where we would do our work, sit back in a chair,
there snipping away, smoking a joint.
while we
That's
watch
right.
the plants grow, and
You can't smoke weed in the grow room.
I'll leave that up to you, my man.
You understand.
Yeah, no doubt.
I've had it happen.
No doubt.
So before we get too far away, if you don't mind, let's circle back to the thrips.
We'll circle back to the thrips.
What would you do to rectify a thrip problem in your facility?
Great question.
So we'll go about it a couple ways. We'll do a biological treatment of some sort. Beneficial insects are huge.
Yeah.
And I think that and it's interesting because a lot of the salt growers have a tendency to be resistant to that, where the organic guys will really embrace it. That industry has evolved right alongside our industry. We've been a major factor in helping the beneficial insect
100%.
industry to evolve.
Yeah.
And there's quality sources with
There
quality
is.
outcomes.
We have clients of ours that absolutely are using biologicals, and they're very happy doing it.
So it's going to depend on the growing media. If you're in a soil, obviously, you're a little more limited because you don't want to completely kill everything that's in there. But if you're in rock wool or cocoa, hydroton less often these days in the commercial world.
Yeah, I never see it anymore. I see it all the time.
Yeah. But there's ways that you can essentially flush the root system, but you still got to deal with the fact that
you have flying pests.
They're flying pests. So
my go-to on the biological is going to be the rove beetle. I've had great success with it.
What is it?
The rove beetle.
Rove beetle.
Yeah, rove beetles are great. They're really small, and this is a lot of, and anyone who's doing any scouting, if there is a bug that is a slow-moving bug on your plant, what is not a predator? It is parasitic in some way, because if it was a predator, it has to catch whatever it's going to kill. Rove beetles are very fast.
Really?
And in their adult life cycle, they also develop wings, so they can move throughout the canopy as well as be in the. So I really like rove beetles, and then a secondary biological that I like to run is the Schwarskis. Yeah. Schwarskis are amazing. If you're not running Schwarskis, you can drop a satchel of that on every plant in your room, and the next day, that entire room will be healthier.
Yeah, I've seen those satchels in all these places.
Right.
What do you call those again?
Schwarskis. And I could be brutally murdering the way that sounds.
Sure.
Because I think they're Swarovski or something like that.
Swarovski, okay.
But I just call them Schwarskis because it's easy. It's not my.
Yeah.
I didn't speak Greek. It's not my thing. Whatever language that is that they wrote that in was not my first language.
Latin or Greek
so
or
we
whatever.
made it easier for us at the grow, and everybody seemed to know what we were talking about. And I've always been consistent with it.
All right.
It's like, for instance, BT. We all call it BT because I can't pronounce Basilicus thuringitis or whatever it says.
That's it.
You know what I mean? So this is one of our own things where, everyone should do this in their facility. If you have something that's hard for everyone to understand what it is, then go over that equipment with everybody. Sure. So they call it the same thing because.
So you all speak the same language.
Right, because you want to communicate effectively.
We don't care what the language is. What do you want to call this piece?
Exactly.
Okay, everybody calls it that name.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we did in our facility. But I absolutely love biologicals. And then on top of that, my chemical application is I'm a big fan of Zerotol 2.0. Yep. So I use Zerotol in a lot of applications. And I also utilize it in conjunction with phosphoric acid, and azadirachtin.
Okay.
So I like peracetic acid, I like phosphoric acid, I like azadirachtin. The combination of those three in veg, you should be able to reduce or eliminate powdery mildew in flower. You should be able to reduce or eliminate any pest of any kind, because the azadirachtin is an anti-feedant. So if there's a pest that feeds on anything, well, it's like giving it crack. And then it spends 2 days running around, and you come back 2 days later and spray it again, and now it's a weak crackhead as opposed to a bodybuilder or whatever it was before. So I love azadirachtin. Phosphoric acid as a...
Burn the skeletal structure, the exoskeletons of them?
No, so it interacts with the epidermis of the plant to thicken it, kind of like silica does.
Okay.
To help make it less penetrable by white powdery mildew spear.
Understood.
So, and that's something you do in veg. Every one of these steps are something you do with the thought process in advance of the actual problem. Because I'm a firm believer in an ounce of prevention. It will go so much further. So again, it all leads back to the proper procedures, utilized effectively, will lead to a repeatable outcome. And that is business, folks. And this is what we're doing.
I'm going to say the next step would be knowing whether the plants that you're intaking have diseases. Most diseases are held in the vascular bundle of the plant. Sure. You don't even know that they're there. And people say, "Oh, mine are clean." Are they really? And so there should be a quarantine area where you're bringing things into.
And I believe quarantine and R&D should be near each other. I've always done it that similar path. And if you bring anything in your facility, if you bought it at a trade show, just know that your facility is going to have a bad day real soon.
So what's the fastest way? There's now companies out there that can look for diseases and search for them. I know medicinal genomics, as you mentioned.
Medical genomics does a great job. And they do their qPCR testing for hops latent viroid. Phenomenal. You should be doing tissue testing on a regular. Maybe not your canopy per se, like don't go into your room and start chopping leaves off, but go into your mom room, which will eventually be in that room.
Correct.
And if you get it from there, you still have time to make a different decision if the results come back that you don't like. As opposed to if you did it in the room, the room's probably finishing about now. And well, what are you going to do different? Not a damn thing. So make sure that if you are doing testing, you're doing it at the right time so that you can be effective with that information when you receive it.
Yeah, I've heard that they found that fusarium and hops latent viroid are usually found together, and they're still trying to figure out which one is the chicken or the egg. Correct. And have you guys heard anything about that? Or
so, and again, this is going to be bro science opinion.
Okay.
Because I think there are people out there that do know the perfect answer.
Yeah.
And I may be close to it.
Okay.
But my opinion is it systemic or is it not? Well, if it's systemic, then how do you remove it? And I do believe that some of these things like hops latent viroid, that's a systemic issue. You're going
starts in the roots. Yeah. When the conditions are right, it moves up into the plant.
Right. It's living in the vascular system of the plant. We're utilizing that vascular system when we take clones. It's all still there. Nothing changed. I don't care what you drug it.
So there's a theory that the fusarium hits first, weakens the plant, and then the hops latent viroid migrates actually out of the roots and into the plant. Yeah. They don't know if that's accurate or not.
I think that's close.
Hypothesis.
I think that's
Zamir Punja from Simon Fraser University, we work with him, and we're trying to get to the bottom of that. Which one is? I just thought maybe you guys might have heard.
Well,
something.
And people taking it seriously and getting this material tested, the more that we contribute to that pool of knowledge, the more we'll have accurate information and results.
We still have a lot of growing to do, a long ways to go when it comes to optimizing this beautiful plant.
Oh, 100%. There, and everything that we talk about that's negative, everyone that's listening needs to understand that this is affecting your yields.
Oh, your bottom line.
It's your bottom line. This is your company at stake here. Don't take it lightly.
Yeah.
Embrace the problem, embrace the suck, and go find the solutions. And because they're out there. Yeah. You know, I can tell you right now, if you have hops latent viroid, then you need to be doing meristem apical tissue culture to get rid of it, because you need to replicate something that does not have a shared vascular system, and that is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
And it will become more prevalent. Look at Driscoll with their strawberries. There's not a single strawberry plant that's not coming out of TC, because it will produce the first year, where if you grow it from seed, we're looking at 3 years. That's not a good business plan. Nope. This is the same thing. These plants are going to be so much more productive because we set them up to be.
Agreed.
And don't be afraid of the preventative cost. You know, so many people shy away from prevention based on cost.
They look at input cost as I have to reduce it. What they don't realize is they're burning cash out the ass
on the back end
at harvest.
Every time.
Every time. And I see this with huge MSOs too. All they care about is the price per gallon. No, what is the results per gallon? If you're going to have a facility, you should you should go out and buy every single nutrient company's program, have their people come in and test it and know for yourself what the truth is. I cannot believe all the CEOs that have not implemented a research and development protocol for every single company's product that's out there, so you understand the cost of your input and how it affects your bottom line and shareholder value. Because I can guarantee you there's CEOs who are treating this like a normal business and not understanding their product, and they are costing shareholders hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars every year. And if they simply got into the trenches and they drilled down and understood this one part, they would be so much more profitable and their lives would all be easier. They wouldn't be pulling their hair out going, how are we going to make payroll next week? How are we, we have to go back to our investors and ask for another 100 million or 10 million or 20 million or $1 billion, whatever it is. And they're not understanding that. It's like if you're the CEO of General Motors and you don't understand how your cars are built, you're in deep shit.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, no one in particular, but I'm sure someone feels like the shoe fits. But if you're in cannabis and all you post is pictures of you flying from place to place,
yep.
Did you care about the plant or going to the places?
Correct.
I mean, what was the priority there while you were there?
Well, I did that. I showed that. I stopped doing that now. Now I do all my moves in secrecy.
I do too.
People have no freaking idea what I'm up to now.
Yeah, and
I like to keep it that way.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. Not a lot of people really know what I'm doing in real time.
Well, watch you extra careful here, Clovis. That's right
now. No, but I definitely think that ego portion of it plays into it. You really have to, as a student of cannabis myself, right here today, if you're not trying to be a student of cannabis, then you're just trying to work with your program.
Man, did you hit the nail on the head? You actually have to really care about your craft, your trade, whatever you want to call it, your vocation. You must understand that plant inside and out.
Absolutely.
I can tell you at Advanced Nutrients, we really understand the plant at a deep level. We know pathways. We know what they're doing. We understand how to hijack pathways.
Exactly.
And we're already working. Like the 8th gen is getting ready to come out in the first quarter 2025. Let's knock on wood, it all works out that way. Yeah, there's always registrations and all this stuff. They're already working on our 9th gen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's going to take 2 or 3 years to develop. We know that.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons that I love working with Advanced is because of what you just said. We focus from a scientific standpoint. I need sources.
Man.
I need validation. I don't need to find out for myself.
Yeah. Numbers reveal the truth, and those COAs are the truth.
They're the truth.
Yeah.
Well, it comes down to the core of the company, the mission, the culture, and really what you represent, right? And I think that similarly to what you just spoke to, I mean, there's been a lot of misconceptions about Advanced over the years.
Oh, right? Yeah, there has.
There was a lot of resistance.
By the way, people think, oh, it's so expensive. There is a different pricing structure for LPs than there is for the hydroponic stores.
But what
versus the home grower?
Sure.
So tell me, go ahead.
And what in this world do you not get what you pay for?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and where at what point did that change for cannabis nutrients?
We've done all the research for you. We've done all the mixing for you. There's
and let's take it a step
much
further. You did that cannabis specific.
Yeah.
Let's not negate the value of that and how far ahead of the curve you were with that compared to the majority of the industry that we had in the retail stores who hid behind tomato plants.
Correct.
You know, and that was the language, that was the culture of the time. But I remembered a period of time where you guys weren't invited to certain spaces. There were certain trade shows.
That's right.
That you
we did some guerrilla shit, that marketing stuff that we got around. We had to.
To this day, those events, those things that you did, flying banners over events.
That's right.
You know, not backing down from legitimate attack of.
We got attacked by everybody. So one thing I'll say is, being a business owner in any space, as you become more and more successful, you're going to take hits because of jealousy, envy, all kinds of other things. But to your point, we early on, I understood that science was the truth.
Sure. And
I right away went to BCIT and UBC University. Then from there, I was able to join. I literally crashed their party, so to speak. The world's top ag scientists every year get together, but every 2 years it's like a super convention. There's about 150 to 200 of the top scientists from all around the world used to go to something called the Plant Growth Regulation Society of America. And those were I made friends with those guys, top guys from, you name the university, you name the ag company, they were all there. Mm-hmm. And I went in there, and I faked a badge, the whole thing. I went in, and so I'm there on the second day, and this dude comes up, he goes, "We haven't seen you here before. Who are you with?" I go, "Okay, fucking busted." And I just said, "Look, I'm a cannabis grower. I'm here to learn from you guys." And he goes, "Welcome. Cannabis is just another plant to us. Come on in." I was only non-PhD there. Beautiful. And so what I found out was they shared huge, vast amounts of knowledge that shortcutted advanced nutrients in so many ways. Dr. Dick Ferris from Calgary University, he's since passed away. He studied surfactants for 40 years. 40 years, thousands of them, he told me, that he's studied. And I said, "Okay, so tell me about them." He goes, "Well, there's a whole bunch that are neutral, but there's also a whole bunch that are negative. They negatively impact the plant." I go, "What are those names?" He told me all those names. I said, "Okay, I'll stay away from that." He goes, "However, there's 5 that will actually stimulate plant growth. And one of them will stimulate plant growth by 6%. I said, "Well, what's that?" Now, this took this guy 40 years. He just laid it out on the table. And it's the same surfactant. We use two different surfactants, but that same surfactant is
still today.
Yeah, it's in our connoisseur. It's in our Sensi line. And because it works so well, it makes everything more absorbable. But that is how I learned. I learned from scientists, real world scientists, and took and tried things and saw what worked and didn't work. Now today we can get inside the plant and we can study pathways and all this other things. This is why we've always supported CanMed, and every single person in cannabis should be attending CanMed. This year it's going to be in Puerto Rico. Everybody should go because that is the hub of cannabis knowledge, and it's being ignored by our industry except for other PhDs. And I take our sales team there. They've all been there, and they're just amazed at how open they are in sharing information and how much that they learn.
Sure.
Knowledge, applied knowledge is power.
I've been very blessed to work with some very good professors. Thank you, Royal Hines and Dr. Bruce Bugsby. Y'all have
Bruce,
been great.
yeah.
So I really appreciate that. But to that fact, I want to equip people with the tools. So listen closely when I say that Google also has Google Scholar. And every white page that any scientist has ever wrote, you can Google Scholar it today and have the exact scientific answer you want. If you don't like the way I say it, well then go read it for yourself. Yeah. Because I'm not going to regurgitate something that can't be validated somewhere else. Why would I? It would only make me look bad in the long run.
Yeah.
And to the effect of what we were talking about where cannabis was so negative, even on Google Scholar, hemp is a much better search term than cannabis.
Well, by the way, hemp. So one of the things that we also did early on was Russia had a lot of research on hemp. And so I pulled those Russian documents and had them translated. And I learned a lot about cannabis through studying that stuff from 1904, 1905. These studies were going on. It's like we're not reinventing the wheel here. This plant's been around for a long, long time, and you can learn. And that's Google Scholar is a great place. Talking to PhDs is another great place. Where do you get to what? There's information, but also more importantly is where do you get that source of information? Where did it come from?
Sure.
Yeah, no. And to be fair, every time I talk to Royal, the very first question he asks me every time is, "Have you put it in Google Scholar?" Every time. I'll ask him something. I'll be like, "Oh, what? Tell me about this." And I'll be like, "Well, have you put it in Google Scholar?" Because he's just going to regurgitate maybe what he even wrote.
Yeah, and he wants to be more specific with you to give you the exact answer you're looking for.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
Exact knowledge.
He wants me to come to him with enough information to at least be dangerous so that he can then sharpen that knife.
Internal locus of control. You've gone and done your job, you've done your research, and now he's there to help you with any kind of
Right. Now I'm not a flat bar
cracks
piece of
in your
steel.
knowledge.
Now I'm a samurai sword as opposed to...
And he's going to sharpen you.
Right.
Steel sharpens steel.
That's right.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron.
So how do you get people to overcome the fear of the outcome of the question that they're trying to answer? Because that's what I see as a major barrier, is that people are just afraid that whether it's they're outing themselves of a position, or they're
and I think that's a situational
they're going to affect their ability to earn within that company based on production levels or what have you. There's always a fear associated with people not pursuing the answers that they are really looking for.
Just ask the person why. I ask the questions a lot. Why?
Exactly.
Why?
What is your reason?
It's like a broken record.
Right.
And they'll answer. And don't be afraid of looking stupid. That's what people think. They're gonna out themselves that they're not as intelligent. There's no way you can know everything. You guys are gonna say things to me. I'm gonna go, tell me more because I don't understand it. I don't know. I want to learn. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of growing up.
No,
and stepping into discomfort.
Right. It's very easy to say, hey, you know what? Let me get back with you on that answer.
Yeah.
I want to validate.
And even if you don't, then say, yeah, let me get back to you. That's a great one.
I do it all the time because, hey, look, in an interest to be smart, I learned a lot of things. And some of that didn't retain.
If I don't know the answer, I'll just say, listen, I'll get you the answer. It's usually one phone call away.
That's right. Yep. That's how I feel about it. I go reach out to somebody who I know has the answer, and, well, I'll get back with you. And that's part of it. And this is another thing we can talk about in cannabis. Our network is our net worth. If you isolate yourself because you don't want other people to know what you're doing or how you're doing it.
This is my recipe. You got to give me $10,000 for it.
Yes.
And it's like 5 different companies, stuff slung together. So,
exactly.
Wow.
That situation, you don't want to put yourself in that situation. No. You want to put yourself and your company.
That's ego again.
That's ego. That's why I circle back to it.
Yeah,
you want to put yourself and your company
yeah.
in a situation to be successful. And if you let that ego stand in the way, well, you're just standing in the way of success.
Yeah.
You're only hurting yourself and all the people that work for you. Don't forget that. If you have 10 people that work for you, every one of them is going to collect unemployment if this company goes under. Is that going to feel good because you wanted to feel right?
Yep.
I promise you.
There's a man in a facility right now that is about to be replaced, and we tried working with this guy, and management finally came to us and said, please find us somebody. So after I do this today with you, I'm going to make
some phone calls.
Not only a phone call, but I'm going to put out a video for this facility because it's a very, very large facility, 4,000 lights, and again.
Well, they deserve to have somebody there that wants to work with them and wants them to be
successful. They're losing probably $30+ million a year.
Ooh, that's a number.
By not understanding some certain things.
I know some healthy people. That's big.
It's ego driven, unfortunately.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yep. It'll get rectified, but it's just sad to see because it's like, no, we're there to help. We are there to help you grow and be successful.
If you are the leader of your movement, of your company, of your cause, then everybody that follows underneath you is directly tied to your success. If you're willing to cut their success short, so that you can feel better about yourself, and it's going to be fleeting.
Oh, yeah. If you yell at someone and you push someone down and you invalidate them, it says more about you than it does about them, because as a leader, you're there to guide your flock, so to speak, and get them to feel safe, heard, and then implement the ideas. And so, there's always saying trust but verify. And you have to go and you have to make sure that they're actually doing
trust
it.
But verify.
Yeah.
Love it.
A hard lesson I learned by not doing that.
Yeah, that's one of the L's, huh?
Yep.
For another podcast.
That is. Yeah. So we've covered some ground here. Okay, so we went from the psychological. You know what? It seems to me that the biggest challenge that we're facing is a psychological challenge when we come into these grow operations. So we talked about the ones. Let's talk about things where the team is hooked up. They're all on the right hand side of the page. We've given people. We've shown them hell. Now let's show them heaven. What does heaven look like when you go into a well-run facility? What's the vibe? What do people feel like? And explain that.
So in my opinion, a heaven type of scenario has a cohesive leadership.
Okay.
That clearly defines what your mission statement looks like. At the end of the day, if I want to produce good, clean, quality cannabis, then I want to make sure the people that work for me know, hey, we are trying to produce good, clean, quality cannabis. All of that starts at the top and works its way downhill. So if your company has an issue, maybe it doesn't make it all the way to you at the issue, but it makes it somewhere near the top, because it's not the people out there pulling leaves off of your plants that are causing your company to go under. It's not the person you're paying to trim the pounds causes the person to go under. It's the person who made the decision that affected yields.
So the first thing that you see is great leadership.
Great leadership is the most important thing we can do. And I don't want to say cannabis lacks it, because there's a lot of great people.
I'm going to say there are a lot of people. However, there are a lot of challenging people.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of people out there who are running facilities and are in this space that I just want to give them a hug. And I want to send them to leadership training, because that is everything.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. It's hugely important. And if you're not willing to, look at yourself in the mirror and correct your problems, well, don't expect your employees to do it for you.
Some people they don't even realize that they are the problem. That's even more challenging when they're totally asleep and you're talking to the wall, until one day something tragic will happen in their life, and then they're going to. That's what happened to me. I had to then look at myself. I mean, my early years, I wasn't a great leader. I was driven. I was smart. But leadership, no. That's something I had to work on.
It's that accountability factor, right?
Yeah.
And it takes time.
I was hyper independent, all of that. Betrayal in my life, didn't trust people. And then I found out, wow, life is so much easier when I just don't have to be the smartest guy in the room, ask a lot of questions, and change the way that I deal with other humans and how I speak to them and what I do. What a difference it made.
Oh man,
huge,
I can tell you the difference it made in my life, so I can assume that
you guys wouldn't be here right now if I hadn't made that change. I can tell you that now.
See how much that means?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you looking at yourself and correcting the things that you thought needed corrected, because I'm here for it. And now that I'm here, we're going to try to take this all the way to the top.
Oh yeah,
that's what we do.
That's what we do. So okay, starts with leadership. Now, how does leadership then deploy that knowledge down to the staff? So when you're in world-class facilities are running right, and you see the culture's right, the leadership's right. Now let's talk about the cultivators themselves who are working in those facilities. What is their day like versus the thing that we just got done talking about?
So I would say that, and I'm going to only refer to what I consider a good cultivator and what their day should look like. And from this aspect, I want to even break that down just a little bit further. Director of cultivation. Okay?
Right.
Let's not just say something.
So you got ownership, now you got director of cultivation.
Right. That director of cultivation, I have seen people, they are great growers, and they're doing a lot of great things, but you have to convey your knowledge to the next person under you and then have them successfully implement.
So that means you have to make your team members feel safe and not afraid to ask questions.
Bingo. You can't alienate them or they won't ask anything anymore. And
they'll shut down.
They'll completely shut down, clam up, and you will get nothing better out of them. And I promise you on this one, I speak from experience. It took me a very long time. I had people that loved me and worked for me. That does not mean I was the best leader that they deserve.
By the way, being super nice isn't
That's not leadership.
That's not leadership.
No, it is not.
Leadership is having firm boundaries, expectations, and holding people to those accountable. And when you do, they will respect you more. If you want to lead by fear, that will only go so far. But when you lead with respect, the whole dynamic of the team changes.
So as a good cultivator and a good director of cultivation, I do think that at some point your job stops being to work with the plant and your task delegation and your...
That's interesting. So it's not about the plant. Now it's about the people.
Right, because they're your frontline worker.
Yes.
And they are going to do what you hope is what you would do in that situation. So you have to always start with yourself, and then you have to transmit that message to the next entity, and then whoever they work with, they need to be good enough at some point in time to transmit it to the next. So you're a student first, and then a teacher second.
Yeah.
So that's how I've always approached it. So in my opinion, if you've made it to director of cultivation, you're probably not working directly with plants. You're probably talking about feed charts and scenarios that are coming on, IPM schedules, operations. What is this harvest going to look like in this time? How are we going to have, the dry room to get it all in there at one time? Will that last harvest be out? Do we need to do this as fresh frozen because we fucked up?
Strategic thinking.
Right.
Front end structure.
Correct.
That is going to empower your employees to perform at their highest level, right? You're essentially a teacher / coach. You want to be, you're on the court, but you're not necessarily
taking shots.
Yeah, you're not taking shots.
Right.
But your failure as a coach is going to have a direct impact on the outcome of the team's performance. And that structure, the level of design of operating procedures, taking that thought process out so that people can just focus. They know what they need, where they need to be, but you empower them to do that job within
no micromanaging there.
Yeah, you have to let people sink or swim on your own, and that's how you find out who the real players are. You've got to put your team to the test. Being a nice guy definitely is a hard thing to outgrow. I think it's a lot of our default. I think is
also because when you're doing something that's illegal, you don't want any friction from anybody.
Exactly.
You want to get through life, and you're just like, okay, just okay, but underneath the rug, whatever, just like, especially if you got a girlfriend and she knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
I had a crazy girlfriend once. She used to get in an argument, and I go, okay, fine, I'm leaving. As soon as I'd hit that door, she goes, if you walk out of that door, I'm calling the police on you, telling them, you're growing cannabis. She didn't know where the grows were, but still, and it'd just be this yo-yo thing, Again, didn't realize enough about myself at that time.
Yeah, no.
And what I was getting myself into, and the type of person that I was attracting for the type of person that I was at that time. Very, very interesting. I look back now and understand what her challenges were.
So
and what mine were too at the time. And
So now that we spoke a little bit about what I think the director of cultivation should look like, let's talk a little more about what a lead cultivator's daily task should look like.
So wait, you went to director of cultivation. So they're looking at all kinds of other things. They're developing the strategy for the lead cultivators. They're doing operations.
And the lead cultivator is working directly with your frontline employees to implement all of these strategies.
And how many lead cultivators are in some facility? One or two?
Size depends on it.
Sure.
Size is huge. But there always has to be somebody that is a decisive, definitive leader. If you have two lead cultivators and they're equally respected, somebody
got to be in charge of
has to be right.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be the guy.
Yes.
And this is a mistake I see a lot of people make. Oh, well, he's the guy, but he's my nephew. You know what I mean?
That's a mistake right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be great, but usually it doesn't work out.
No,
that way.
Nepotism is a tough road to go down.
Yes, it is.
Advise it.
It is. Yep.
So if you're a lead cultivator and you're working with, say, you've got a room that you deal with, and My first thing is I go in the morning, I verify that plant's fed. I typically show up about an hour
As
after
a lead cultivator, you're there an hour before everybody else is.
Yes.
Okay.
All the time. And so I'm in there, I'm making sure that there wasn't light leaks in the room, there wasn't doors left open, because look, a door can cause you a bad day if you just leave a door open and you've got these fire exit lights on that are glowing bright red right outside the door. I learned that the hard way. So you need to go in and verify. The first thing is QC overnight events. Is there a tank that flew over? Is there an RO system that stopped functioning? Did it feed? Did the lights go off on time? So, and some of that, as a lead cultivator,
some of that's automated, and you can look at your graphs real fast.
Correct, and that's what I was going to say.
Yep.
Some of that is going to be that you're going to be looking at your phone. I literally walk around looking at my phone. Saying,
really?
Oh, absolutely. I'll walk in a room, and if I don't see that nice stair-step pattern on my water content meters, and if it bottoms out or it didn't move at all overnight, it stayed at 60%.
Yeah.
That's the time that you need to be checking your calibrations. So even if you have a set standard of, we do it once a week or once a month or however you feel like it should be done. Well, if you have a gut feeling that something wasn't right, as a lead cultivator, that is your obligation to check that.
Okay.
You need to go personally validate that this was erroneous information or we had an issue.
Again, internal locus of control, because I'm trying to get the audience to understand external from internal. Internal locus of control, you took full accountability and responsibility for your job. You got there an hour early, you checked your graphs, you went and you troubleshooted everything, and if there was an issue, you're already on it, so when the crew comes in, you can address it.
Right, if you walk in and you've got a light flickering in the middle of your room, they should never see that because you took care of it. And believe me, I've had that happen. So that's the beginning of the day. Okay. Now, the second thing that I'm going to do with my day is after I have verified plant health and such, I'm going to check my fertigation room. I like to start the day with opening procedures and closing procedures.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So part of my opening procedures is first plant health, then it's equipment checks.
Okay.
Does any equipment need preventative maintenance today? Is the light not working in this room? Did I have a plug go out because I sloshed some nutrients and you know what I mean? Who knows what? There's a million different things. So I start with the plants and then I follow up with the equipment. And then through the middle of the day, I've probably got plant tasks to take care of, whether that be defoliation or trellising or up potting or taking clones.
So when the cultivators come in, they're assigned to what room and all that. Are you doing all that before they even show up? You know who's going to be doing what?
Yeah, so I
room?
like to utilize Trim in my facilities.
Great people,
which
great
is a
software.
great task management software.
What is that? Explain that.
It's a software company out of the Bay Area that developed a platform for task management. It also integrates with Metric. So as you're working, you can digitally do plant kills on demand. You can organize all of the plants within a room, and you can connect that to the tasks that you're assigning.
Correct, and then that employee can sign off on that task as complete.
And you get the data.
Trim as a
TRYM, Trim.
Okay.
Yeah. Trim, yeah,
and you get all the data.
Reach out to Lindsay and Igor. They're two great people there that will get you on the right page.
Very good. What does that program usually cost?
$500 a month.
Yeah.
$500 a month.
It's a subscription fee.
There is some upfront for some of the hardware. There's a minimal amount of equipment
if you buy their
involved.
Scales and some other things, which I recommend all of these because it's great for harvest, to streamline the harvest process because it will automatically input all this data as opposed to manual input.
So it helps you, but instead of having to put all that stuff into Metric, it just does it.
Exactly.
It does
you get a chance to edit things before you send it to Metric. So which is huge because a lot of times you're just running through
a Metric
things
mistake can be
costly.
Yeah.
And it can get the state up your what. So that's something you don't want to deal with. But the other benefit of Trim is their ability to get you the time associated with those tasks. So your employees are checking in and out.
So it gives there's a punch in, punch out.
So as a management group, when we go to other facilities and they say, okay, I've got a 50 light room and how much is it going to cost me, for example, to defoliate this room? We have set data based on our experience,
and that's
50 lights, our employees under our SOPs, and a specific outcome that we're trying to achieve, we know how long that takes. And that's worth, in my opinion, that's the biggest gap in information and knowledge being applied to the commercial. And savings.
So that $500 a month is actually nothing compared to
because
what you're
it's
going to save
streamlined.
in efficiency. I can see the efficiency of a facility going up because it keeps everybody on task and working.
Sure.
And
Right.
you know who's doing their job and who's fucking the dog, so to speak.
Exactly.
That's a Canadian term I learned when I was up there.
No, exactly. And
Yep.
it's got to do with, if you need to focus on your strong suits. I play to my strengths. I don't deliberately go do stuff I'm bad at. I ask somebody else to do it. That's why, I don't take care of my pool at home.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. And this is one of those, it's an analytic program that will help keep people in their lane and verify that they did it the way that they were supposed to, in a time manner that they were supposed to. Plus, it's another thing where if you have something happen in this room, you can come back and say, well, who did this particular thing? Who trellised this room? Why did we only have 2 trellises when we should have had 3? Like, who did it? What happened? Where was the disconnect?
And there you can plainly
Correct.
see it.
Plainly
Very good.
see it. And it's all very easily
And
shown.
as we've discussed, staffing and staff in general is the biggest challenge in the space, right? There's not a lot of people with a lot of experience in cultivation in general,
why we're bringing
cannabis
out
specific.
The CCI Black Books were brought out, and then
Exactly.
now the Cultivators Cannabis Institute is coming, so people can get a full curriculum and get trained up to be put into facilities because
Love
we
it.
realize that this is a huge pain point in our
For
industry.
everybody.
One of the goals of Inside Cultivation here and Advanced Nutrients is to raise the level of cultivation and ultimately end product that's being put out there. Better products, better cultivators, easier for the owners, easier for all cultivators who do love their job and want to be there, that they can build the right teams and have the right mojo going into the facility.
Absolutely, your team
that
matters.
makes it brings maximum profitability.
I mean, everyone that runs or owns a facility, I know you can attest to this as well, the biggest expense is staffing,
labor.
right?
Labor's
Labor is the biggest cost by at least 50% of anything that you're going to deal with on a monthly basis. Most of these facilities, God bless them, are overstaffed. And it's
Absolutely.
it's a result of lack of knowledge and lack of connection.
Lack of task assignment.
Yeah.
Like you gave somebody one job and they fucked the dog all day doing it.
Absolutely.
You've got all this automation that you on the front end design and implemented, and you're not able to utilize it because you've got multiple employees that make it so you don't have visibility to the specifics of who did what, when, how,
right.
or why. And with implementing software and implementing on the front end your design and quality equipment, you're reducing staff. That's the whole point of that.
I want to get off on a little tangent here. So sometimes owners don't have the backbone to make the right decisions and put themselves first. I want to give a case in point. So there's a guy that I know that has a vending machine. It's a green stop. It's 4-sided. It's like a vault, but he puts it into a facility, a dispensary. Everything's going good. People are using it. Owner calls him up and says, I don't want the machine here anymore. Why? My employees are complaining that they're getting less tips. So he pulled the fucking machine out. Really? Why don't you put yourself first and your company first? And those folks out there should also be doing that as well.
Right, because that's lost sale. You can't
That's
guarantee
crazy.
you can't guarantee that they transition to purchase from you outside of that box, even if they were in your store. That's lost sale. That's bad business.
But it's also it's lack of efficiency, and that lack of efficiency is now costing you more money. I don't get it. It's I understand the mentality behind it, but I don't get it because it isn't the right way to look and run a business.
Right.
And I see that also, that I've seen owners who are afraid to get rid of certain people because the difference between perception and perspective. perception is the crazy movies that we make in our head versus the reality of the situation, how it really is. And it gets, our reality fields get distorted.
No, that's so true. It's one of those things where people are people. You know what I mean?
Humans.
We're human.
Humans.
We're human. That's why we look back at things and say, hey, did I do that right?
That's why you put the process, the systems, the software in place to make sure that everyone is doing their job and your facility is running at maximum efficiency.
Every time. In fact, my main pitch when I talk to somebody is how can I maximize your operations? Because that doesn't convey that I want to change them or cost you a lot of money. It just means that
it's a great question.
What are you working with and how can we use it the most effective manner?
You're trying to get to their pain points because a lot of folks don't want to talk about their pain.
No, they do.
I can tell you this, if you see an advanced nutrients, a facility advisor coming into your thing, just go ahead and just download everything to them because we welcome it and we will work through everything step by step by step.
That's what we're here for. We're here to build that value. That's value we bring to the sale of the nutrients. It's our value add to the customer. And it's basically our promise that, hey, we're not going to do you wrong.
Yeah, don't hide your pain points because we can't help you if you're hiding it.
No, and we understand that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution anymore, right? It's come down to custom integration. And that's custom design of the nutrient applications per genetics, per the application of under canopy lighting. You can't just throw those lights in and run the same program and expect to have a superior outcome.
Right, if you boost transpiration 15%, you need to boost irrigation.
So it's
on the same note.
It's a constant education, and why not utilize the teachers that you have at your disposal? I mean,
absolutely.
The beauty of this experience and working with this company is that we get to share this knowledge base and we get to extend ourselves on this platform truly to just benefit people's bottom lines. That's right. I mean, there's really no nefarious activity. We are passionate about the product. The reason what I was drawn back into the group by was the performance.
That's
exactly. Right.
I mean, were you born with all of this knowledge?
No, sir.
No, I wasn't either.
No, and there's still a lot more that all of us have to learn.
So
I'm going to learn.
Yeah, it's humble pie when I come in and try to work with you because I wasn't born with this.
Right.
I learned this. And a ton of it was, I can remember when I was in the situation where I was calling a sales rep and asking for advice because something bad had happened. Typically it was, dead plants.
Something bad. So let's get back to the cultivators. What should the cultivators in a facility be doing? How do you break up the work? Or do you even break up the work?
So I do break up the work, and I try to lean towards people's strengths. If I know somebody's better with scissors, then I want them to be using them as much as possible.
Okay.
If I know somebody's better at pest spotting or something along that nature, that's what I want them to do. If you're a pre-roll guy, please don't be in my room defoliating the flowers, okay?
Right. Yeah.
So I want everyone to play to their strengths. And you need to know what people's strengths are. I have always had the mentality of cross-training. Because I believe you build value when you cross-train people.
Agreed.
So if this person starts as somebody who just fills the pre-roll machine and then pulls them out, well, then maybe the next thing he does is the infused pre-rolls. And then maybe the next thing he does is packaging the solventless or something along that lines. Every person that works for you is going to find satisfaction in feeling wanted/needed. By cross-training people, you want/need them to be there.
So you, as a leader, you must be present and paying attention to what people's strengths and weaknesses are, and then put them in the right position.
Absolutely, because you could have somebody who is a great employee, and in the wrong job, they are terrible. Here's my saying on this: if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you will always perceive it as ignorant.
Yeah, that's right.
So you got to make sure this fish of yours is in the ocean where it needs to be with all the other fish.
And ultimately,
great analogy.
Whose responsibility is that? It's your responsibility.
Because you
to
place
make
that employee in that task.
And going back to what you just said, training and actually giving people exposure to the right procedures is a major gap in what is being done in the facilities currently. You'll see amazing SOPs. There were periods of time in Michigan, people were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for operating procedures from California based on the quality of the design of the plant work and strategies for irrigation and these types of things. Nowhere in any of those SOPs was there a program for training the staff to do those specific tasks.
Wow.
And I see that still to this day. I mean, there's very few companies that will spend the money to train or empower their employees. Mm-hmm. And then they wonder why they have outcomes that aren't at the level that they would like to see, you know, and it just comes down to empowering your people, you know?
Absolutely. You're as an employee, as a leader, you're one of two things. You are somebody who is building your employee up, or you are somebody who is using your employee up. And that comes from inside you.
That's deep.
Oh yeah.
And accurate.
Oh, and I felt used, trust me.
Oh, sure.
I learned that one.
Yeah, being put down, devalued, all that stuff.
It's a big deal.
But the knife does cut both ways, and you gotta be aware when you have a cancer in the facility.
100%.
You've got to be able to not be the nice guy all the time.
Correct.
That's why leaders are not always nice people.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's times where you're going to have to make some hard decisions, and that is leadership.
No, we took a psychology test. I made every person that worked for me take a psychology test.
Really? Which one was it? Was it like the top of the big five or whatever?
PVG or P. I'll get back to you on that one. It's in my emails and such. It's something Russ did with me. And the first thing I did was I took the test.
Yeah, sure.
And then I had a 17-page report wrote on how I would naturally respond to every situation. Mm-hmm. What would my natural tendency to do in this situation? And then every single person that I considered as an employee moving forward, I made sure that their natural tendencies worked well with my natural tendencies, because there are absolutely natural tendencies that would butt heads. Yeah. Right. We want to make sure that everybody jives real good, because at the end of the day, I know it's so cliche to be like, oh man, work is family. Well, if it's the right job.
Work is actually a team, and it's not family, and you're building a world-class team.
Absolutely.
As soon as you put family in there, then all kinds of other mistakes can be made very quickly.
Now it's nepotism. Right.
That's it.
So you just kind of got to focus it from that way. You want their best interest as mine as well as yours. And that's part of getting people in the right job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
So now you're down to your cultivators. And so what's the first thing that a cultivator should do? You should talk to the lead, and the lead should be assigning him the daily tasks, or should there already the tasks be done?
Depending on how they're doing
before they get in there, here's your thing to do, here's your thing to do, here's your thing, or does the cultivator have, here's the one thing I do, I go for one room and do that, to the next room do that, to what's the best system that you've seen?
So my system is one that is a perpetual harvest, so that you basically have a 2-week flow. You're going to inevitably do the exact same thing on about a 2-week schedule. If you do this today, well, the next room that's 2 weeks behind it, you're going to do it again. So I try to set everything up with that thought process in mind, that I have 2 weeks to accomplish basically everything that I know I need to accomplish.
2 weeks.
And then kind of divvy it out and make it work, because there are just certain things like, if you fill your dry room today, well, 3 or 4 days from now, you can't put anything else in it, because that moisture will then move over to an already drying material and maybe cause contaminational issues. You know, you dry these things once. So unless you have multiple dry rooms, well, then you need to plan all of these things. And that's part of the cultivator. Like, hey, this room is going to run. I looked at it. Everything in this room is still cloudy. I don't have hardly any amber yet. I think that room's going to run a week longer. Well, that conversation has to be had in advance of, hey, we're cutting it down today.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Live and die by the calendar. It really comes down to that. And every high-performing individual knows that that's already the case.
How do you know when you're walking into a high-performance team versus a non-high-performance team?
Communication.
So what are the tells?
I think that's key. So communication, almost 2 C's: communication and cleanliness.
Yeah,
to me, those are
really,
that's your visual
goes
cue.
hand in hand with.
Yeah. If you didn't know, Mike, I am a plant janitor.
Yeah.
And I've been a great plant janitor for a
Really?
long time. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, it's what we do. Everybody gets into this job thinking, oh man, it's gonna be so cool. Everyone's gonna love me. And then they find themselves wiping flood tables down. And they're like, man, this wasn't quite the glory I thought it was gonna be.
Everyone thinks, oh great, cannabis, I can smoke weed all day and I can work.
No. I need peak efficiency. That's another aspect of your
There was a time in Advanced Nutrients history where guys would be on a sales call hitting bongs like while they're talking.
Yeah.
Can you believe that shit?
That is
and it's like
wild.
I had a wake-up call myself, right? So interesting.
Yeah.
And those days are over with.
Stepping stones
this is
in
a
our
real
evolution.
business now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Absolutely. No.
Smoke as much weed as you want after you're done working.
Absolutely. So let's talk about maybe some of the other frontline workers.
Yes.
So inside of a cultivation facility, who cleans the bathroom?
Janitor.
Right. The janitor. So do you have one of those? Because I know a lot of facilities that don't make enough margin to just employ a janitor.
So why is a janitor so important? That's an easy one to overlook.
Very easy to overlook. And it's a lot of manual labor that, if overlooked, saves an enormous amount of time. The problem is it costs you down the road.
And I honestly think there's a benefit to having that be a separate individual. I also think that there is benefit to everyone in the team rotating those chores, those responsibilities. I've got kids, and it's important that they understand that they have responsibilities and why they have them.
Right, like who's
and
cleaning the break room.
Exactly. And there's some connection to your space, the respect of yourself and why you're there. And if we can empower people on that level, I think that that's something that they can take with them beyond the facility. So I don't shy away from having everybody do everything.
That's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about it.
Myself included. I'm the first person to clean a bathroom, pick up a mop. That's and employees will pick up on that. And you can't be doing that every day, but it's important that when you are active in the facility, that you don't put yourself on a pedestal and that you get into the trenches with the guys.
Lead
because
by example.
those are the people that are most respected on the field. So
no, and to your point, the job is not finished until you put all your tools away.
Right.
Let's talk about this, because too many times have I walked in a grow room where they mopped the floor and then left the mop bucket right there next to all my plants, and that ain't good. I mean, I can't even think of there is literally not one good reason you would leave an empty, dirty mop bucket right next to all your plants, especially when it contains everything you just pulled off the floor. Right. So by that opinion, you need to make sure that people understand what entails completing a task. If you trellis a room up and you had to go get your roll of trellis and then you leave it in the corner, and the next guy goes to trellis a room and he's like, where's the trellis at? Well, the last person didn't complete their task.
Yeah.
So that's huge. Accountability for completion of tasks is massive, especially when they get more menial. When in my facility, I had a wall of tools. And if a tool was missing off it, you could tell because there was an outline around it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't there. So somebody did something, and then they didn't complete that task. Where is it at? Who knows? It's probably on top of a light, and you'll find it in 2 months. That's what I found. You know what I mean? So make sure that
taking ownership of the tools that you take out.
Correct. Because as the owner, they're your tools.
Oh yeah, they are.
I mean, are you paying your cultivator to bring tools in? I've been paid to bring my tools in a facility, and I'll tell you right now, that was not a good move for me. I would never do that again. So in offering some advice, I would say buy your own tools and make sure that people take good care of them, because I firmly believe that you're only as good as your tools. If you don't equip me with the right tools, well, I mean, it's going to be a lot harder to do the things I want to do. The things I want to accomplish will be exponentially harder. Whereas if I have, a machine that builds a road and I need to build a road, well, that road might not be that hard to build. But if I have, just me and all the equipment, it's going to be a much, much different situation. If you have to build a road with a shovel versus a backhoe. That's a great analogy of it. That hole is going to be a lot easier to work when you're sitting in a chair. So help empower your employees and the frontline workers. If they invite creative ideas, ask them to tell you what they think would help make their job.
Don't shoot them down.
Right.
Let them
listen to those creative ideas. Even if the idea is not good, it doesn't matter. You don't have to tell them that.
No,
you can still consider it because they said it for some reason or another. And the reason is you didn't see whatever reason it was, so you can only take their perspective of it. So make sure that if someone is, says, oh man, I really think we could benefit from having an extra sink over there so that I don't have to walk all the way across the facility for this. Or there's not a sink all the way on the end of that hall and it's like 200 feet long. You want me to go by everything, especially in a hall. I mean, in these facilities that are large.
Oh, they're long.
Yeah, these halls go forever. I had a little electric scooter rolling around them because it's
really?
It's like, I've got a super cool scooter for this facility I have in Mississippi. It's super awesome. I highly recommend that. It's a way to move around to grow. But it was one of those where I was trying to be efficient. And it was obviously not everyone's idea, but it worked in our situation. So take that into case. If something that doesn't work for everybody, just because it didn't work for everyone else doesn't not necessarily mean it won't work for you. At least be receptive of your frontline employees because you're never going to be in there trimming cannabis. You're never going to be on there with a backpack spraying peracetic acid. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to know that spraying peracetic acid burns and is unpleasant to smell. These are things that matter. If someone says, oh man, that really irritated my eyes today, maybe let them try something else the next day.
Yeah.
Maybe that's their way of saying, hey man, that was unpleasant in a way that I don't want to be a part of.
Sure.
And listen to it. Even if it's not like the reception of an idea to purchase a tool or something to that nature. Even if it's just, oh, hey, part of the job placement, make sure you're getting people in the right place.
All right.
Tools and job placement. That's what it's all about.
Tool and job placement. Is there anything else that we have? I'm sure we could go on for hours and hours and hours about
We
this.
could.
But we've covered the main topics. So
we definitely have. I don't think we really missed anything. The only thing I would consider is the importance of genetics in this entire equation.
Okay.
And SOPs connected to your genetics,
Oh.
which is something that I'm hoping that we collectively start to really hone in on. We're going to be doing some pheno hunting of Big Mike's new line of genetics, and trying to really get to the core of production, both weight and quality.
Correct.
And and environment, because not everything works in every situation.
Correct.
And it'll give us the ability to, when we approach a new client based on their level of understanding of production, we can guide them to genetics that are going to support that level, instead of trying to put the most exotic $7,000 cut through an entire facility. And again, you're handing the keys to your Ferrari to your 16-year-old kid thinking you're going to have a positive outcome. Yep. So I think that it goes full circle, and ultimately knowing the plants, the infrastructure, and the right nutrient schedule to apply to these things, it's a package deal, right? And it's custom, and that's where things are evolving now. Yep. That previously you did go into a store, buy things off the shelf, out of a box, however you want to say it. Now we know that even from that same suite of tools, that there's ways to customize the application.
100%.
And there's certain things that just cannot be applied through a commercial injection system.
No.
Just stop. Let's just not go there, guys. Let's avoid the problems on the front end, and allow yourself to be educated and know that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And when you start understanding that if you're in this for the long game, you're going to win, and eliminate the stress of trying to compete in this short game world that we're in right now, that really only works to the benefit of the social media algorithms. Really, if we're really getting down back to the psychology of it, you know, it's got to be driven by reality. It's a business now, guys. We're running a business. We're not making widgets. We're growing plants, and there's intricacies and knowledge base and science that needs to be and can be applied. Do yourselves a favor, you know, take the time, talk to the right people, go to the groups that have taken the L's, and take advantage of the fact that people are willing to share this information now.
That's right.
You know, we didn't have this, you know.
Ask for help.
I had magazines and books, and God bless the people
and a few friends.
And a few
growers,
friends, right?
Close growers.
A few friends. And honestly, you know, without that, none of us would be where we're at, but it has changed, you know, and I think where we're at right now is we're in a position to help everybody level up.
Yes, we are.
And I really hope that the industry appreciates and sees the impact of what we're out here doing, because it really is. I mean, obviously it supports us, supports our families, but it's a passion project. And I know this based on your history and the fact that I know you don't have to do this. You know, I would imagine that you could do your thing and retire at any point. You know,
I could sell and have a life that is just cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As I say, I will die with a cannabis plant in my hand. If I don't have one, I expect you guys to put it in.
It'll be there. It'll be there. It'll be there.
No, it's just because the average human male lives, I think, 6 years, 4 months after they retire.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just figure I'll just work till.
Right.
Yeah.
Forever, right. I figure I'll work till
I'll cut back on hours for sure, because as you get older, it is what it is.
Right.
But right now, I'm still running hard.
So I think one of the things that
not as hard as I used to, and I'm taking care of more of my health.
Yeah, you're not supposed to. You really need to think about that. One of the things I think that cannabis lacks is a strength, weakness, and threats analysis.
Really, a SWOT analysis.
Yeah, if you're going to make a change and you are opposed to it, and somebody tells you, hey, this will cause this X to happen and you will be prosperous because of it, but you are opposed to it, then you need to do a strength, weakness, and threat analysis, because they already have, or they probably wouldn't have said it to you.
Yeah.
So that's something I think
we all have blind spots. I have some now that I don't even know that I had. I can remember talking to let's just call it a therapist, and he said, "You've got these 3 keys that you have to be careful with, because if someone hits these 3 keys, you know, the doors open up." I would have never caught that in probably 15 more years of my life. I went, holy shit. I said, thank you for that. And now it was one of my vulnerabilities.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't understand. I do now, and so I'm careful with it. When I get that input, I'm like, okay, take a step back. Everything's going to be fine, but just take a step back and observe a little bit more. So, yeah. And plus, there's God knows how many other ones I have. We all have them. It's natural. And so, if you're in a great team, you, with kindness and compassion, point them out to the other folks.
That's right.
A way. And you don't do it in front of the group.
Look, kindness and compassion.
You take them off to the side and have a discussion in the office or over a beer or pizza or
right. And it started
burger.
with kindness and compassion. Because if you don't bring those 2 things and you correct somebody, it is so easy for them to feel alienated and shut down.
They will shut down. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Clovis, Shane, it has been an enlightening interview, and I thank you both for your time and your wisdom.
No, absolute pleasure. I appreciate you having me out.
No doubt.
That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
Awesome.